A very good afternoon to everyone out there. Welcome to the Mindful Parenting webinar. Today we have another student who has completed the mindfulness-based Undefeated Mind course at NUS, who will be sharing with us. Prior to him becoming a pharmacy student at NUS, he was at Hwa Chong. So he's going to be telling you a whole lot more when we start the program today. And so I'd like to just invite my co-hosts here first to show their faces. I have Mei Cheng, who was a former vice principal of a school, spent many years also teaching in the gifted program. And Frank Singham, who is a senior counselor at Brahm Centre, who helps a lot with parenting as well as marital challenges. And I'd like to invite now our student, Eugene, to show his face, and he will be the one presenting shortly. Okay, so before we get into his presentation, we will do a short mindfulness practice. And this is good for all of us to kind of center ourselves and just to also tune into what is the weather in our body and the mind. And this way, we're able to sense both our feelings as well as the sensations in the body and the amount of thoughts that are going on up there in the mind. So, all right, I will now invite you to sit back and take 3 beautiful deep breaths. Feel the breath in the body. Close your eyes if you haven't yet. And just drop into your body, noticing the various sensations that may be present. Be aware of what the feelings are, emotions. And if there's any tightness, tension, or even aches or pains in the body. And now I'd like to invite you to sense into your feet, noticing the ground under your feet or the footwear that your feet are in. Are your toes relaxed? Are they tense? Your ankles. And sense your bum on the chair. Check your upper body is balanced between the 2 sides of the bum. Notice where your hands are. And check that your hands are happy where they are, or feel free to place them somewhere else. And if your fingers are relaxed, open up your fingers if you find they're clenched. And sensing into your abdomen. Scanning up to your chest. Notice if your chest is relaxed or is there tightness in the chest area. Your shoulders. And be aware of the thoughts that are running through your mind, if there are any at all. Becoming aware of the weather in the mind, whether it's drizzly, clear, stormy. And just dropping into your breath, wherever you feel your breath to be. chest, stomach, or somewhere in your nostrils. You may be aware of sounds around you and accept the sounds around you as they are. And be aware of the facial expression, relaxing your jaw, your cheeks, and tuning to your breath again. And just be aware of your entire body from feet to head, head to toes. From your right fingertips to the left fingertips, across your shoulders. Just be aware of the body that you're living in. And just focusing on 3 more beautiful breaths. And slowly opening your eyes after counting the 3rd breath. Okay, so welcome. So now I'm going to invite Eugene to turn on your video. Eugene, are you able to? Wonderful. Okay, Eugene, maybe you can share a little bit about yourself, especially to those who have just signed on and may have missed my little short introduction earlier on. But I'm delighted to welcome one of my former students at NUS to do his presentation today on his mindfulness journey and how it has been part of his own personal transformation. So over to you, Eugene.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Eugene. So thank you for the wonderful introduction, Prof. Angie. So before I start on my mindfulness journey slides, I'd like to begin with a short animated video that I made to introduce my mindfulness journey.
Eugene, is that supposed to be sound?
Yes.
Okay.
Is the sound being played?
There's no sound. You need to leave your mic turned on.
Yeah, it's on.
Oh, okay. Let's give it a go.
Okay.
It's a
Oh,
lovely little video.
so now let me show my slides. Okay, so the video I showed basically sums up some of the highlights in my mindfulness journey, which first began when with Prof. NG through her NUS module titled An Undefeated Mind, Experiential Inner Engineering Approach. And there was this part in the video that shows the timeline progression, which I strongly resonate with. Basically, in week 2, when I started this module, I had no expectations and no clue about the course and the mindfulness, as compared to the end of the course, when I became more enlightened about the impacts of mindfulness and how we can all apply it in our daily lives. So a little background about myself. Personally, I can be quite harsh and beat up on myself, especially with regards to academic grades in my education journey. And at some point, it was about viewing myself as my own greatest enemy in achieving my goals. And honestly, it often felt quite self-debilitating by having this negative energy around me. I also have the tendency to bottle up negative emotion and thoughts, and in that I don't like showing weaknesses to others, as I felt that often makes me more vulnerable to others, and also because I didn't want my parents and others to worry about me. So I often had a great reluctance in asking for help. Additionally, in the past, I find myself doing a lot more of events and human interactions logically, as I'm often a person of science, as even in university, I am studying pharmacy. Give me a moment, I'm solving this black patch issue.
It's okay, Eugene, take your time.
Okay.
Do you want to come out of PowerPoint and then activate it again and see whether it may be better?
Sure.
Okay.
Can you see the full PowerPoint now?
There's still a bit of black patch, but it's okay. Just carry on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So as I was saying, like in the past, I find myself viewing a lot of events and human interactions logically, as I'm a person of science. As even in university, I'm still studying pharmacy. So for instance, if people are upset about grades, I will often just tell them to work harder next time round, without much regards for what they're going through. And I feel that sometimes being too direct in these kinds of interactions may instead make the advice more counterproductive, in the sense that I often disregard the emotional state that people have placed into what they want to achieve when they seek advice from other people. So one part of my mindfulness journey was silent retreat, which happened in the middle of the course around week 7. I recall that there were many takeaways from the silent retreat, and firstly, one of the learning points that I learned about was mindful eating. The first thing that we have heard in the silent retreat was that we were going to have a vegetarian meal for our lunch. It was something that surprised me, as I didn't have a vegetarian meal before. During the vegetarian lunch itself, I was also shocked to hear that we had a luxurious amount of time of 40 minutes to consume our meal, even though it would not take me that long to finish it. Consuming my first mouthful of beancurd and rice felt nice, as both were very flavorful, especially the mixed green rice. I mindfully chewed on the food as Prof. Angie shared with us to be more grateful about the meal that has been placed in front of us. Overall, it was an interesting and nice experience to have the flavorful vegetarian meal, which was less bland than I thought. The second takeaway for me would be the mindful walking that all of us did as a group inside the multi-purpose sport hall. Walking around in the circle together was not an activity I expected, as I did not expect any group interactions for the day. This as we were told to be silent and not to look at other people's eyes. Throughout this activity, I had to ensure that I followed the pace of the people in front of me and ensure that I did not step on their feet. It was even more tricky when we had to walk backwards as well without looking back. Challenging as it may be, I believed in the person behind me and walked at a steady pace. This reminded me about how we should be mindful of the people around us, even to those that we do not see daily. The second part of mindful walking in the hall was interesting as well. Initially, we had to walk at a very slow pace, and then had our pace doubled, or 3 to 4 times, with our fists clenched. The noise I heard as everyone's paces increased was honestly disenchanting, and was a mimicry to the hustling and bustling sounds we hear in the city, especially at the MRT stations. This reminded me of the fact that all of us are living in a fast-paced society, no matter the student life or the working adult life. The constant rat race also puts a strenuous load not only on our physical body, but also on our soul and mental health as well. It dawned upon me that I should attempt to live happily from my 20s and not attempt to let the rat race and mindless paper chase be the focus of my life. The last part of the mindful walking was to have a nature walking nearby the hall. I walked around the Yale NUS Greenfield and Yale NUS College, which I did not go before even though I had been staying nearly in RC4 for about a year. Slowly walking around Yale NUS College also made me realize that I will often rush from RC4 hostel to my destination at the Faculty of Science without truly enjoying the process of walking or the scenic nature along my walk. In that sense, I may not have fully experienced the RC4 hostel life. From the various activities in the mindfulness course, these are the 3 foundational attitudes that I identify with the most. Firstly, would be kindness for friends, for myself, as well as my family. Secondly, would be patience, because the journey to make changes takes time, especially in forming mindfulness habits. Thirdly, would be acceptance of people's personality and also of events beyond our control, as well as not comparing with others with regards to results, for instance. So kindness is a major key takeaway I had, followed by acceptance. And at first glance, kindness is just a beginner level noun that you have learned since primary school. And many people don't really put deep thoughts into the meaning of the word and how kindness can impact us personally. For friends, when I first started practicing kindness to my friends, I noticed that I often allowed my amygdala to be hijacked in the past. So there were times that I responded based on emotions and conveyed hurtful tones. Now, I'll do my 3 deep breaths before I respond, because firstly, it calms me down, and secondly, it gives me more time to process my response. I also learned to be non-judging and will clear my mind of previous assumptions about others so I could truly know and understand the person that I'm interacting with, rather than jumping to conclusions about them. In terms of acceptance, I believe that I need to truly accept people's personality as who they are. And if often it seems that my personality can be quite a mismatch with the other person's character, I realize that sometimes letting go of the friendship may often be better for both of us. Another way to practice kindness is being kind to others without motive and with a genuine intention to help. Of course, the knowledge of mindful speaking and mindful listening that I learned played a huge role in helping me understand what people are going through, as well as helping me to convey thoughtful thoughts. I realized that if I could seed the thoughts of happiness in this pressurized cooker environment in NUS, it can possibly help those around me rather than me commenting about the endless paper chase. One day, when I was just being nice to my friend and showing some concern because she looked quite stressed about her endless assignment, somehow it led to this conversation that I had with my friend. So you can see on the top right-hand side of the PowerPoint slide. So those were the messages that she sent to me. She asked me why I was still being kind, even though she was a little distant and cold. So I shared with her my mindfulness module, and she actually learned some stuff from it. Hopefully, it helped her. Moving on to the kindness to self, I was actually quite stressed in my JC junior college period, and a lot of concerns went to my grades. Thinking back, maybe I preferred to go to a less stressful JC. Often, there were a lot of self-blame. There's a lyric that goes, when you try your best, but you don't succeed. I used to tell myself that the best of my efforts was simply not enough to succeed, and that my capability as a person was simply insufficient or capped. It can be quite a sad or depressing thought. But eventually, I realized the meaning of trying my best is not about, give me a moment. It's not about,
Eugene, speak a little bit louder, please.
okay, can.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I realized that the meaning of trying your best is about pushing myself to what I can achieve, and also about being gentle to our soul. So it is not about bullying others or ourselves to attain our goals. Another thing about being kind to others is also about seeking help from others. Is it louder now?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So another thing about being kind to myself is about seeking help when it's needed. This actually happened last week when I was giving this presentation with Prof. NG during the course itself. So I was actually supposed to present that time earlier, but I was down with a bad fever and flu, and had a practical finals before on that Tuesday, which was not finished yet. I still remember the struggle I had on that night, and whether I was going to come up with a solution myself, such as by doing a presentation that would not been up to standard, or perhaps asking Prof. NG to allow me to do the presentation during the week after. So I'm glad I asked her about it, and that she was very accommodating towards me, and she was very nice. I also learned that grades don't play much of a significant role in the working life and beyond, as it was more about our attitudes. When we were at the Reconsider nursing home, not one of the elderly mentioned about their past occupation or how stellar they did in the workplace or in school. Instead, they excitedly talk about the precious bonds they form with others, like with family, about how people cared about them, and about how they're taking life more easily. So this is a screen grab from my animation at the bottom right corner. It's basically showing about how the people and the people in Reconsider sharing their life stories to us as students. And it was very interesting for them to talk about family, their loved ones. So I thought to myself that maybe not doing well in some modules in school would be fine, as I don't have to beat myself about it. Unsurprisingly, friends may not believe me yet because I've always been uptight about my grades. So kindness to my family. So sometimes impatient and unintended comments can come from one another in the family. So I've always learned to be more patient and understanding. And again, I'll do the 3 deep breaths, as I will take the words that I don't want to hear as vibrations in the air, and maybe start talking when everyone is more calm. There is this quote that I find quite inspiring. So it is better to light the darkness than to condemn the darkness, by Eleanor Roosevelt. I interpret this as learning to fight against the very pressurizing NUS environment through spreading seeds and thoughts of kindness and optimism. Sometimes a simple hello or even a smile to others can brighten up their day. So I used to believe that mindfulness was purely just a concept, but actually mindfulness can be a habit or even a form of lifestyle. This is the other takeaway, in that mindfulness is sometimes something that must be matured daily through different mindful practices, such as mindful speaking, mindful eating, and mindful listening, as well as mindful breathing. As in all things, when trying to create new habits, I will always try to be patient when I form these mindful habits and letting them be part of my lifestyle. So how do I plan to plant the seeds for future mindfulness? These are the 4 main practices that I'm going to continue on beyond the module, with mindful listening, mindful walking, mindful speaking, as well as the awareness of breath. With regards to mindful listening, as a future pharmacist, I will need to listen to a lot of patients during the counseling, and sometimes they can be quite distressed because they're sick. Sometimes simple nodding of the head will help to elevate some of their concerns. With regards to mindful speaking, so instances like simple nodding and telling them stuff that actually benefit them rather than scolding them will actually help the person. By taking into account their emotions, people will feel more comfortable when speaking to you. About mindful walking, it's about acknowledging the exploring the nature as well as a sense of tranquility can help to calm our nature and calm our soul when you enjoy the nature. As well as moving on to the last one about the awareness of breath. When you have deep breathing or conduct awareness of breath, it helps prevent the hijacking of our amygdala. And during this awareness of breath exercise will help me to focus on the present moment, which is something that I feel should be more something that I feel that I should do more often rather than worrying about the future. Because if my thoughts are living in the future, then I'm not really living in the current moment. So thank you for listening, and I hope all of you will similarly enjoy your mindfulness journey as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Eugene, for that lovely presentation. I recall you making that presentation almost a year ago. It has been that long. So now that it has been many months since you completed the course, have you been able to keep up with the practice? And what is the practice that is still most useful to you?
I think two main practices that I'm still mainly keeping up with would be the mindful listening. Yeah, because as I've said in the presentation, as a future pharmacist, I'll need to listen to the concerns of others rather than like giving a standard response to patients. It's about sometimes showing care and concern and emotions to others first, rather than giving them entire recommendations. So I think patients and like friends would definitely appreciate that you acknowledge their concerns or emotions first, and this is quite important as well. So another thing would be mindful walking, especially nature walking, because I think that having this kind of nature walks really help me to calm myself down, and it helps me to better feel more at ease with myself rather than trying to be concerned about what's going to happen, especially in this time of COVID-19, where a lot of us are stranded at home. Unfortunately, there's phase two. So I recall that I would do my exercise alone, but even doing this exercise alone, I still feel at ease with myself.
Thank you. Well, there are many parents listening in, and one of the concerns would be that you're not so concerned about grades anymore. What is your comment on that now?
Well, I would say that trying my best with regards to no matter like grades or for example like your co-curricular activities. I think even though I would say that I'm not as concerned about grades, it's more in the sense that I wouldn't feel as defeated as much by whatever results I see. Simply because I believe that I've really tried what I could to achieve the grades that I have, rather than trying to punch myself, oh, like why did I not get A, that kind of stuff, why did I not get A plus? Yeah, so by being more like learning about how to be more satisfied with what you have, I think in a sense you'll be living much more happier, whether as a student or as a parent thinking for the children as well.
Okay, so what you're saying here, you're not reducing the amount of effort you put into your studying or whatever that you're doing, but you are able now to appreciate whatever outcomes that you are seeing after that. Like whatever grade that you get, you're not going to beat yourself up over it.
Yes, I agree, because beating myself up doesn't really help me that much. But I think if you see the grade, for example, it might not be a good grade, but actually it's kind of show you like how there's a room of improvement for you. So by acknowledging that there's this room of improvement, it allows you to try to excel forward and making sure that you have the space and opportunity to do so.
So if you compare yourself now to when you were in junior college, and I believe you were in Hwa Chong Junior College,
Yes,
how
that's
was it
right.
different for you at that time? It's a
I
very
would say,
competitive school.
yeah, and in Hwa Chong Junior College, it really felt like a pressure cooker environment because there were really quite a lot of emphasis on having good grades, scoring good grades, especially if you look around my peers, like a lot of them, they are doing quite well as in junior college. So there's a sense of like, oh, everyone's doing well. I believe that I should be doing well as well. But I realized that I shouldn't be comparing with other people, their grades. Rather, I believe that all of us should have the concept that the biggest enemy is ourselves. So we try to be better than yesterday. And I think as long as we have that notion of trying to be better than the day we are before, then I think with the improvement, I think that all of us will feel more satisfied in our lives.
So what would have been different if you had taken mindfulness uh, in junior college instead of only when you're in NUS?
I think the awareness of breath was very useful. So for example, if I think I had mindfulness of breath, I would feel less stressful. And I would feel more like enlightened about my grades and my results. I wouldn't be so stressed about it. I'd be like, oh no, I didn't do as well. I'm only at like the 50th percentile. What should I do to get to the 100th percentile, for instance, like that? So it was I believe that if I had this mindfulness knowledge or had attended this mindfulness course earlier, I think it would really help me. And I wouldn't be as stressed as during JC that period of time. Yes.
Now, many parents would like their kids to attend mindfulness courses, and they're wondering how you made that decision. How did you come about, wanting to sign up for it, and how to convince one of your friends to attend if the parents are the ones who want them to attend?
Well, I think attending these kind of mindfulness courses can be quite beneficial. But firstly, I think the person or the child themselves has to have an interest in having this mindfulness lesson. So perhaps in trying to introduce their sons or daughters to this concept of mindfulness, I think having, for example, introductory videos or introductory Zoom sessions with them would really help them to be more in tune of and more understanding of what this mindfulness concept is about. So by conveying to the students or to the sons and daughters these ideas of mindfulness, I think it will be much more easier to then hook them up with more sessions of mindfulness.
So what were your reasons for choosing this module?
Well, I think when I saw this module as compared to other modules offered in my Art Before hostel, it was extremely interesting because it was something that other professors were not offering. And I recall that I was searching about the guest professor, which is you, online. And it said about your story of Brahm Centre, and I felt that was quite inspiring. Yeah, so it actually made me realize that I wanted to attend this mindfulness course. And also because during NUS and during JC that period, I felt quite stressful about grades. So I'm thinking about how I can re-engineer my mind or like try to change my approach towards life. So I felt that this course would be very beneficial for me, and I was glad that I joined this course.
Thank you. There's a question here about anxiety. Do you feel that when you mentioned feeling stressful, that there was also a sense of anxiousness? And if so, how did it help you?
I think this mindfulness course helped me deal with some part of anxiety, in a sense that we have this part called awareness of breath or deep breathing, which is about having 3 deep breaths, which you conducted at the start of this session. And I think by having this 3 deep breaths, we try to focus and calm our mind about what is going on around us and with many issues happening around us. And I think that having this awareness of breath is particularly important and crucial in helping us pace ourselves to deal with the issues we have and to deal with issues one by one, rather than trying to tackle like a multitude of issues at once. So with regards to helping me deal with anxiety, I think this particular awareness of breath really helps a lot.
Thank you, Eugene. You are very eloquent, and it's really wonderful that you have agreed to join this particular segment of our mindful parenting.
Thank you.
And stay there while I invite my two co-hosts on. And I'd like to also take this opportunity to thank Turbo One for sponsoring this program, and in particular Albert Toe for helping us make this program known more to the public, and even taking advertisement in the Straits Times so that more parents can benefit. And if the parents benefit, I think the kids will benefit. So if you have questions, please post it in a Q&A. So I'd like to invite Mei Chung. Perhaps you may have a question for Eugene or something that you'd like to add on. You need to unmute first, Mei.
Sorry. Thank you, Eugene, for your very candid sharing. Like, you said about your mindset when you were much younger, that you didn't want to voice out or to ask for help when you had negative emotions. And then that's simply because you didn't like to show your weakness or even to burden others. So my question would be then, how did you manage those? And other than managing it, how do you process it? Or if there were a support network, who forms this support network? Your support network that could help you, that you could reach out to.
Okay, with regards to how I managed it when I was younger, so as I've mentioned, like I would like to bottle up my emotions and negative thoughts for two reasons: not showing weaknesses, as well as not trying to burden others. So how I've learned to manage it, I think this mindfulness course has taught me that one way to manage it is by first understanding that not everyone out there is trying to hurt me. Not everyone out there is trying to be malicious to me. There are always support networks, for example, friends, close friends, and family members who will always be out there to listen to you, no matter what issues you have. So by taking away the concept or assumption that people are out there to strike you down, I think then we can be more open to listening to others, as well as be more willing to go out to others to seek help or seek for assistance, especially when we're feeling stressed or down. And maybe like in many cases, there are instances that they are not able to help us with the task at hand. But I think by having outlets, by having a way of sharing with other people, in a sort of sense, you are kind of like venting out our negative emotions and thoughts so that we won't bottle up these kind of thoughts. Because I believe that at the end of the day, if we all bottle up our thoughts and emotions, especially all the negative ones, it can explode in kind of negative way, and it won't be beneficial to ourselves or to our family and those around us.
Thank you very much. And that's why we have the assist line that we are running, a helpline for those who face any emotional distress, and they can call in to have a listening ear, someone who won't judge them, and they can share their issues, okay, anonymously and without being judged. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
May please type the number into chat so that everybody can keep this number in the mobile phones to be shared with someone else, or to even use it in time of need, especially when the students are feeling vulnerable or feeling defeated. They have someone that they can reach out to put it out there without feeling judged, as you kindly emphasized on.
Okay, absolutely.
Now, there are many occasions where I speak to teenagers and they're very irked by what the parents say to them, because a lot of times parents make comments, sometimes jokingly, but the child may not take it as a joke, or even though it's a joke, it hurts. Like someone said to me, my mother says that, yeah, I'm second from the bottom, and then she laughs. She says, but it hurt her so much that she felt very down, very low in self-esteem. So Eugene, do you have anything to share in that regard? You were amongst very bright students, but even then, did all of you have higher self-esteem, or were you very much affected by words that may not be encouraging?
I think ironically, even though like many of us may do well academically, but I think among some of us might have low self-esteem. especially if we try to compare with others who seem to do better than us. So I think with regards to like, for example, people not feeling, people are feeling quite unsatisfied, or they feel like insulted by comments made by others. I think that one way is to take 3 deep breaths and having the awareness of breath first. Then after that, trying to raise the issue with them about how, oh, the joke you said was not very nice, not very pleasant, actually hurt me. And then by kindly reminding them about how not all jokes are acceptable to everyone, then I think you're not only giving yourself the chance to show that you're not well and not do not accept this joke, but also giving the opportunity to the other person to know that, oh, this is not fine, and that they know that to improve on this.
Thank you. And as a parent to another parent, if your words are not supportive or encouraging, please don't even let it slip out of your mouth, because it may really hurt the child, even though he or she may not show it. So there's a question here for you. Can you share how your interactions or relationships with your parents and siblings were before attending the course and after, and how has it changed, if it has at all?
I think before, I tend to take the interactions with my parents more for granted. Like I would take it like, oh, parents, they're supposed to provide me with this sort of things in life. So I think there was definitely a sense of gratitude down there, but not as much, and not showing them as much. And I think today is a very relevant day. Today is Father's Day. Yeah, so I believe that many of us can do what we can to show our gratitude for our fathers today. And so going back to the topic, I think after having this mindfulness course, I believe that I became more kind to my family members. I tried to be more patient with them, and I try to understand some of the difficulty they go through. Because as parents, as we understand parents, many of them may not want to show difficulties or show weaknesses in front of their children. So I think it is important for us as children as well to understand what they're going through and try to help them out at home, maybe with regards to chores, or asking how their day is, or like before they leave the house, wish them a good day at work, that kind of stuff. So in a sense, I think I became more appreciative of my family members, and I, as much as possible, try to not take to heart the kind of if they ever say hurtful comments. And like as I said just now, if they do say hurtful comments, I'll try to share with them that, you know, is it because you said it in a moment of spite? Is it because there's something else triggering you? And I think by understanding what the cause or what the reason is of saying those comments, I think it will really help the parent-child relationship and take it to a higher level.
Thank you, Eugene. That's a lovely answer. Now, I'm not sure what your family background is in terms of whether you have a helper at home, because there are many families who have helpers. So many of the kids don't feel like they need to do anything to help because there is a hired helper. And what would your suggestions be to them to show a bit more appreciation to their parents who are well off enough to give them the comforts of life?
Well, personally, I don't have a helper at home. I only used to have it when I was much younger and I needed a helper to take care of me as a baby. So for those that want to show appreciation to their family members, if they're able to like hire a helper, I think one way is to, for example, like take them out for dinner or take them out for lunch as a way of showing appreciation and say, oh, like, you want to treat your parents to meals. And then I think that when parents see these sorts of acts by their children, they'll feel much more appreciative, and then they'll see that, oh, like my children is able to do such acts of niceness and graciousness.
Thank you.
I think that's one way.
Well, there may be kids out there listening, and even though this money may be from your parents, it is your pocket money that you saved up, you may be amazed that if you were generous with your parents, even by buying them a piece of cake, or saying that, can I treat you at the hawker center because I cannot afford to treat you at the restaurant, I think you're going to get a whole lot more back. So don't be stingy with your money. Generosity will always bring more generosity your way. So that's a great tip, Eugene.
Thank you.
Yeah, another question here is, looking back, what are some of the things that you wish your parents had done but didn't do?
Well, looking back, actually, I think my parents tried their best with trying to raise me up. So I wouldn't say I have any sort of like regrets that they didn't do anything, because they've always showered me with care and concern, and they always pushed me to do what I'm interested in. So for example, in secondary school, I was interested in IT stuff, so I joined the IT society, and they've always pushed me or allowed me to go for this kind of like learning trips overseas, because I personally like to travel. For example, like places like Vietnam and Cambodia. And although at first glance it may seem like dangerous place, but my parents trusted the school and they trusted me. So they give me the opportunity to and give me the resources to allow me to go overseas and have these opportunities to learn overseas as well. Yeah. So with regards to what they can do more, I think they have already done a lot for me. So I wouldn't want to be asking anymore. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I'm sure many parents would wish their kids are like you, being very appreciative and having the gratitude. So what about your sister? There's a question here. Were you close to your sister, and how did your parents help you to have close bonds? Assuming you have close bonds with your sister.
Yeah. So with regards to my sister, sometimes we may argue a bit, but then I think one way of dealing with my sister, like siblings, there are times and oftentimes where they might argue with one another, and I think as long as we don't take those things to heart, I think we still can have quite a healthy relationship with one another. And because there are still many things we can bond over. For example, like through our love for Chinese songs, through our love for games, for instance, and through our desire to care for our parents. So I think there's still, after all, many things we can get to bond over.
Did you compare yourself with her, like what she got versus what you got, and whether you were your mom's favorite and she may be your dad's favorite? Do you have any of those sibling issues or rivalry?
Not really. Yeah, because my sister, she's older than me, so as much as possible, she'll try to be nice towards me as a younger brother. Yeah.
So she didn't find you to be a nuisance or taking away part of your parents' love when you came along?
Well, there are times where my sister might feel that way, but after all, I think maybe she was comparing the time when I was not born yet, so it was not a very good comparison.
Okay. This is related to you being in Hwa Chong. How can parents give words of encouragement when their son comes back with lower or average results amongst the cohort?
Well, I think, like, for example, in Hwa Chong institution, there is a lot of stress on there because firstly, the expectations of yourself, and secondly, when you see the good grades of the peers in the cohort. I think one way of not of encouragement by parents is to sit down with the child and share with them, like, oh, maybe perhaps you didn't try your best this time. Perhaps perhaps there were other things that the child was worried about. Maybe, for example, the child had a competition at school, sports competition. And I think by trying to understand what the minds of the child is going through is also quite important, because they may be preoccupied with other worries as well. So I think by first trying to help the child to address the concerns of the child, then I think that then after that we can give more words of encouragement to the child. So some words of encouragement to the child can be like, oh, it's fine, there's no need to worry. If there is ways to improve, then we can all work on it. And in a sense, sometimes not getting the best grade is also a sense of not having that kind of complacency down there. So if you have always been scoring like A or those, you might find yourself starting to neglect that subject. So if you start from like C, like B, then you see improvement to B plus, for example, you'll want to try to sustain and maintain that momentum to try to improve your grades to a higher level. So with regards to sharing more words of encouragement, first try to understand what the child is going through. There might be other concerns on the child mind. And secondly, will be trying to work together with the child and encouraging improvements. So recognize improvement in grades as a positive step, rather than jumping from like B minus all the way to A, because improvement doesn't happen that way. Improvement is always a step by step. And I think recognizing improvement from B to B plus really helps the child as well.
Well, it's amazing. I think many parents can learn from you how to be better parents. And so I would like to encourage all parents out there to talk to your children more and to listen to them instead of talking down at them. I think Eugene is really exemplary here. You know, if you ask him a question with depth, he's giving you an answer with a lot of depth. So when is the last time you asked your child, how can I be better in my parenting? How can I support you more in your growth? Now, there's a question here, how to ask the child not to compare with others. How about saying to your child, whatever grade that you get, I'm proud of you. And it's part of the learning journey. It's not about the grades, but what you learn and enjoy out of your journey of learning. Now, I'm very proud to say that my daughter had only 194 in her PSLE. I was never fazed by that. She still managed to get into School of the Arts and graduated from there and eventually completed with a distinction at London School of Economics. So I like to say this because I want you all to feel like, you know, your child doesn't always have to be really a strong performer when going through primary school or even secondary school, because some are later bloomers. And I've never made her feel bad about her lackluster performance through her tests and exams that she sometimes, not sometimes, and regularly come back with red marks. But rather, you know, just be there to support her that it's okay, you know, grades don't define you. It's just an indication of how well you're learning a particular subject. And she was particularly poor in Chinese and math, but eventually took a minor in Chinese because she developed interest in it because the teacher was inspiring. So I think it'd be wonderful if we have teachers that are really inspiring, because when kids love the teacher, they will start to love the subject. Do you have any comments on that, Eugene, in terms of your love for certain subjects? How do the teachers have an influence on your interests?
I think you hit spot on, because in secondary school I developed a passion for chemistry because of my secondary school chemistry teacher, and she was very inspiring in a sense that even though she can be quite strict with us, but she always shared with us like anecdotes in life, how chemistry is applicable to our daily lives. I think in that sense, through her rigorous teaching and how she teaches us how chemistry is less of an abstract concept, but also how it's relevant to us in our daily lives, I think it really inspired me to find out more about chemistry. And in the end, I went to JC taking a H3 pharmaceutical chemistry, and in university I'm doing a pharmacy, which is quite relevant in terms of medicinal chemistry. So I think I would like to thank that teacher very much for helping me develop my love for chemistry.
So the teachers who are listening in, be an inspiration to your students. You end up changing the course of their life. It's not about them getting the grades, but how well they like you and how passionate you are in teaching the subject without screaming or shouting at the students. So I'd like to invite Frank Singham, who hasn't appeared yet, to chime in, whether it's an observation you made or a question that you may also have for Eugene. You might want to turn your video on again because you just disappeared from the screen, and turn your audio on as well.
Yes, sorry about that. Yeah, thank you, Angie and Eugene. Very happy to see the young man you have grown yourself up into, and I'm very impressed with all the other young kids who came on board on the Sunday afternoon webinars, and it's so pleasing to see how mindfulness has shaped and developed yourselves and made you all more mature in looking at the world. I have a question that relates to what do you think as a young man the institutions in the world need to do to develop you, right? And so for you, there are basically two institutions, right? One is the school, the university that you are going through, and one is the home, right? We have always heard about parents, and I guess the Singapore environment does this to us, always concerned about grades, right? And you get this push in the school, the environment there pushes you, you come home, you get the push again from the parents who push you for grades. And yet there is the other part of your personal development that's also equally important, right? Like the stuff that you have just expounded, that you have gone through in mindfulness, the gratitude thing in life, taking it at a pace, not getting into comparisons, not getting into judgments and evaluations, right? These soft qualities are equally as important as your grades, right? Going forward in your life. So what do you think, where is this mix here? Who teaches you these hard survival things like good grades and go out there and get what you want versus the softer qualities that gives you that emotional and psychological balance that helps you to navigate through life without getting too anxious, entirely over anxious, or even depressed for that matter? Who do you think should be developing you in these two areas? Where should who should be focusing on what?
Well, I believe that with regards to like the soft skills, like you mentioned, I think that family and close friends can play a very big role. So with regards to, for example, like kindness or gratitude or graciousness, these are not stuff that school can really teach without any interactions with or relationships with the student themselves. So I think parents, they definitely play a huge role in this, in teaching us how sometimes graciousness, how sometimes generosity, sometimes kindness can go a really long bound in life. And then schools, even though they have the obligation to try to push students to do very well in school, for example, like through remedials and through all those extra enrichment lessons, I think schools these days are trying to help develop students in the soft skills aspects, like you have mentioned. So for example, I myself personally was in the student council in my school, in secondary school, in Brahm Centre High School. So I think being part of this student council really helped me to develop my skills and skill sets, for example, with regards to conflict management, or like with regards to how to do projects in that sense. So by having this opportunity of student council back in my secondary school, it really helped me develop some of the soft skills that I think that can't really be examinable in a sense, but rather by having this opportunity to do these projects, by having the opportunity to interact with other like-minded people. So by supporting this kind of social network of people who want to improve on themselves with this focus on soft skills, I think it really helped those who are really interested develop these soft skills to actually push up their soft skill up a notch to the next level.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to just chime in here to say that as an employer of graduates, I mean, I would say that the persona and how you handle the questions and your depth of thinking would give many employers a sense of, hey, you're the kind of person we would want on the team. And this is not just about grades. It's not the people who've got all the top grades will actually progress on in their career as well, because without the soft skills, and you can't inspire, you can't influence, and you can't lead, you're not going to become a team leader. You're not going to end up being a department head if that is your aspiration. So I like, the parents to reconsider that when you are helping to develop your children, it is not just about grades. It's about how they can handle adversities, how they can connect with people, how they can be a friend and not becoming a person that's going to give a lot of difficulties to their friends, for example. So yes, people can expect us to do well, but it's not about us living up to people's expectations. It's about whether we feel the sense of accomplishment, the sense of we are authentic. And, if I can only get a B+, yeah, it's fine, because I don't need to prove to the world that I have to get an A. And that's pretty much the path of life I have taken as well. I mean, I'm a CEO of Brahm Centre. I could probably be a CEO of a commercial entity, which I had started a company before when I was younger and earned more money, but that doesn't make me happy. So it's not about how much money you're going to end up making that defines your success. It's how much value you bring to the relationships that you make in this world. So I hope that more parents will encourage their children to learn how to build and sustain relationships. Because when you don't have good relationships, you're not going to get the happiness, no matter how much fantastic grades that you have. So I really like to maybe close up with one more question. How do you encourage those with low self-esteem and not be able to be excellent in their studies to keep going? So Eugene, would you like to take that?
Yeah, sure. So I think one way to encourage people with low self-esteem or not, and encouraging them not to go out studies is to actually find out what they're actually interested in. For instance, like the subject they're doing, they might not be very interested in chemistry or mathematics, for instance. So perhaps their interests and passions lie somewhere else. And I think that the Singapore education system is not as rigid as before. There are more pathways now rather than on the strong emphasis on the math and science. So like you've mentioned, like your daughter went to the School of the Arts. So I think that's one way where the education system can continue to work on. So I think with regards to this question, one way would be to find out what is the passion of the student or the child, and also to keep on encouraging the student and telling them that no matter what results they may get, that the parents will always be there to support them, and you try to help them in their education. And you must also understand that education is not just about the grades, like the examinations, but also about the lifelong education pathway. If you think about it, the education pathway for Singaporeans can be 20 plus odd years. And along the way, there are still many projects and many opportunities for growth. So education is not just about developing of hard skills like math, science, but also more about the soft skills, leadership, learning how to manage people, learning how to understand people. And all of this will really help to sum up and be part of the education that I think Singapore and the Singapore education system should work towards.
Thank you, Eugene. That was really well summed up. And Frank, do you have any words to add before we close the session?
I think everybody, or most people have these three things that they always chase in their lives, right? I must do well, okay? Everybody must treat me fairly and everybody must be kind to me, right? And I must always get what I want. I think society, families all come together and they push these three musts, right? And sometimes parents are also perpetuating this thinking and this behavior in the home. as they talk about their career and they complain about what's happening in the workplace, and then the children are listening and they're picking it up, right? And we go to school, the same thing is also happening, right? You must be the best, you must get what you want, comparison, evaluation, judgments all going around all over the place. So we have to be very cautious about this kind of thinking, because they are irrational and they tend to be absolute, but they are not. And so what Eugene has been through in mindfulness has helped to bring that balance to those kind of thinking. The acceptance, the letting go, the gratitude, the focus on relationships, for example. So I think that is a wonderful thing for you to have gone through, and I hope a lot of people here have learned about this, finding the balance.
Thank you, Frank. I am running a summer semester for NUS starting next week, and I've got 18 students sign up, and that's the max of the class. So yes, I think there's a stronger interest now in this particular module. Yeah. May, can I invite you now to provide your concluding remarks?
I don't have any more advice to give. I'd just like to wish all the fathers here a very happy Father's Day. You know, you have been a provider, you have protected your family, you lead, guide, mentor your children. And to most of our children here, you are the pillar of support, yeah, who cares and nurture and love them deeply. So may you find lots of joy, happiness, and fulfillment in your parenting journey. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you, May. That was really apt. And I'd like to also put a point across to all the parents out there. When you raise your son, don't just focus on them being successful in the workforce, that they will also become a good husband, a good father. Because if they don't know how to be a good husband or a good father, their happiness is going to be short-lived. Because all the money they earn in the world, it's not going to bring them the joy and fulfillment. So there's also another aspect of parenting for you to focus on. Be exemplary, be a good father, a good husband, so that they learn from you. And if you can't do it well yet, please read up, see a counselor, learn from others on YouTube or whatever, but you have a job to also raise your son to be a good father and a good husband. Maybe a good boyfriend first, because if not, cannot even find a good wife. So I'd like to take this opportunity again to thank Eugene for the amazing session that we've just had, and to thank Turbo One and Albert To for sponsoring this program. Our July program has just been published, it's hot off the press. So go to Facebook and have a look at what else is coming up. Next week at our Mindful Parenting seminar, we will have a female student coming to join us. Her name is Alicia, and she's going to be sharing her challenges in life and also how mindfulness has transformed her journey. And those of you who may be looking to do a mindfulness course, not just for your kids to do one, I will be teaching the mindfulness-based stress reduction course starting on Tuesday evening. So you can sign up if you haven't. And there are also many mindfulness foundation courses starting in July. So with that, thank you, everyone. I'm wishing you all a lovely rest of the Sunday. If you'd like to go out to eat, please keep your social distancing, stay safe so that our lockdown will not be reversed. Okay, let's take 3 beautiful deep breaths before we end. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. And thanks again, Eugene, Frank, and May. Bye.
Thank you.